I'll be honest, when I first heard about training dogs to respect invisible boundaries, I was skeptical. My terrier mix, Charlie, would have dug to Australia before respecting a line he couldn't see. But after working with dozens of clients whose dogs successfully learned these systems, I've seen how proper training makes all the difference. The fence itself is just hardware. The training is where the real work happens. I'm Jasmine Caldwell, and I'm a professional pet groomer with nearly a decade of hands-on experience handling dogs of all breeds, temperaments, and coat types. I live with 4 rescue dogs that keep me grounded in the practical, real-world side of canine care and behavioral understanding.
You're listening to Total Pet Parent Podcast. Quick heads up, the voice you're hearing right now is AI generated, but everything else, the research, the writing, the expertise, that's all human. I'm Jasmine Caldwell, and every word in this episode has been carefully written and verified by me personally. To those of you who've been listening for a while, thank you. Seriously, it's great having you back. And if you're new here, welcome aboard. New episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so there's always something fresh waiting for you. Today, we're diving into something I get asked about constantly: how to actually train a dog to respect an underground wireless fence. Let's jump in.
In this guide, I'm walking you through the complete process of training your pet for an underground wireless fence, from initial introductions to reliable off-leash freedom. This applies primarily to dogs aged 6 months and older. Puppies younger than that lack the emotional maturity to handle correction-based training. We'll cover the timeline, which you should expect to be about 2 to 4 weeks of consistent work, the gear you'll need, and the step-by-step approach that builds confidence rather than fear. By the end, you'll know exactly how to turn that invisible line into a boundary your dog respects without anxiety. Before you start training your pet for an underground wireless fence, gather these essentials. You'll need an installed wireless fence system with functional transmitter and receiver collar, properly fitted so you can fit 2 fingers between collar and neck. Grab boundary flags, usually 50 to 100 come included with most systems, and these provide visual cues during training. You'll want a 6-foot standard leash, not retractable, because you need direct control. High-value training treats are critical: small, soft, and irresistible things like real chicken, cheese, or freeze-dried liver. Pick up a long training lead, 15 to 30 feet, for controlled boundary work. You'll also need a collar without correction prongs for the initial introduction phase. And finally, you'll need patience and 15 to 20 minutes daily for at least 2 weeks. Your dog should already have a basic obedience foundation. They should reliably know come and stay before fence training begins. Now, let's talk about setting up the visual boundary. The biggest mistake people make is jumping straight to color corrections. I learned this the hard way when a client's anxious shepherd developed fence phobia because they skipped the visual introduction. Start with the correction feature turned completely off. Walk your dog around the property on a standard leash, placing those boundary flags every 8 to 10 feet along the perimeter where the warning zone begins. These flags create a visible fence line your dog can actually see and understand. For the first 3 to 5 days, simply walk the perimeter twice daily, keeping your dog well inside the flagged area. Treat and praise every few steps. You're building positive associations with the yard's interior space. When you approach the flags, say "careful" or "wait" in a calm voice. Then turn away from the boundary and reward heavily when your dog turns with you. This phase feels slow, but it's foundational. Your dog is learning the property boundaries exist before experiencing any correction. Around day 4 or 5, it's time to introduce the actual receiver collar, still with corrections disabled. Let your dog sniff the collar. Treat. Put it on for 5 minutes while playing inside. Treat. The collar should become just another piece of gear, like the leash hanging by the door. Over 2 to 3 days, gradually increase wearing time until your dog wears it comfortably during your regular boundary walks. Proper fit matters here. The contact points should touch skin through the coat, but the collar shouldn't be tight. On my long-coated shepherd mix, I had to trim a small patch of fur so the contacts made reliable connection. This isn't about aesthetics, it's about consistent signal delivery. Keep doing your perimeter walks with the careful verbal cue at the flags, turning away and rewarding. Your dog should start anticipating the turn before you even give the cue. That's when you know they're reading the visual boundary. Next up, we activate the warning tone only. Now we add the fence's warning beep or vibration, still no static correction. With your dog on leash, approach the boundary flags slowly. The collar will emit a warning tone when you enter the boundary zone, typically 3 to 6 feet before the correction zone, depending on your system settings. The moment you hear that tone, use your established, careful cue. Turn away from the boundary and move your dog back toward the safe zone. Reward immediately. Repeat this 8 to 10 times per session, twice daily. You're teaching your dog that the tone predicts the need to retreat. Most dogs catch on within 2 days. Their ears perk up at the beep and they back away before you even give the cue. I watched my client's beagle, notorious for his nose-to-the-ground obliviousness, start responding to that tone within 3 sessions. The key was consistency. Tone equals turn away equals treat. Simple classical conditioning. This is the phase most people dread, but if you've built the foundation properly, it's actually anticlimactic, adding static correction at the lowest level. Set the collar to its lowest correction setting. Most systems have 5 to 8 levels. On leash, approach the boundary until the warning tone sounds. Give your dog a chance to respond to the tone by retreating. If they don't respond and continue forward, they'll encounter the static correction. The correction should startle, not traumatize. Think of it like touching a doorknob after walking on carpet. Mildly unpleasant, not painful. If your dog yelps, freezes, or shows signs of real distress, the level is too high. Drop it down. When the correction happens, immediately guide your dog back to the safe zone with gentle leash pressure. Don't drag or yank. Then praise and treat once you're well inside the boundary. You're showing them the solution. Retreat equals safety and rewards. Most dogs need only 3 to 4 corrections at low levels before they start respecting the boundary independently. The flags are still up, providing that visual cue. Moving on to distraction scenarios. A boundary your dog respects when you're calmly walking is one thing. A boundary they respect when a squirrel bolts across it? That's the real test. Start introducing controlled distractions while your dog is on the long training lead. Have a family member walk past the boundary. Toss a toy toward but not across the flags. For my high-drive terrier, I had someone bounce a tennis ball just outside the boundary while I kept him on lead inside the safe zone. Watch your dog's body language. If they lean toward the distraction but stay inside the boundary or retreat at the warning tone, jackpot reward. If they burrow through the warning to chase the distraction, the correction will occur, and you'll be there with the long lead to prevent a complete escape while they process what just happened. This phase takes the longest, usually 5 to 7 days of daily practice. The goal is proofing the boundary against real-world temptations. Just like how crate training requires gradual increases in distraction and duration, fence training needs that same methodical approach. Around week 3, if your dog has shown consistent boundary respect with distractions, you can try brief off-leash sessions with you outside supervising. Start with 5 to 10 minutes. Stay in the yard with your dog, watch them explore, always keeping an eye on their behavior near the flag lines. They should approach, hear the tone, and retreat on their own. If they test the boundary and receive a correction, don't rush over or make a big deal of it. Let them process, then calmly call them to you and reward. You want them to learn the boundary exists whether you're hovering or not. Gradually extend these sessions over the next week. I like to schedule them at different times of day. Morning energy levels are different from evening calm, and your dog needs to respect the boundary in both states. The flags have been your dog's visual training wheels. Now it's time to take them off, slowly. Starting around week 4, remove every other flag. Leave them out for 3 to 4 days while continuing supervised yard time. Your dog should still respect the boundary line even with half the visual cues gone. Then remove half of the remaining flags, leaving about 1 every 30 to 40 feet. Wait another few days. Finally, remove all but 4 corner markers. Some trainers remove these too. I prefer leaving a few as long-term visual anchors, especially at gate areas where delivery people might prop things open. This gradual removal prevents the confusion that happens when dogs suddenly can't see the boundary they've been respecting. You're fading the prompt while the consequence, warning tone, and potential correction remains consistent.
Let me share some pro tips and common mistakes I've seen. Never use the fence as punishment. I've seen people chase their dog toward the boundary when they're misbehaving, basically using the correction as a scare tactic. This creates anxiety around the entire yard and destroys the trust you've built. The collar stays on during supervised outdoor time only. Never leave it on when your dog is inside or unsupervised for extended periods. Those contact points can cause pressure sores, and the collar isn't needed when the boundary doesn't matter. Age and temperament matter. Anxious dogs need slower progressions with more emphasis on the warning tone phase. Confident, high-drive dogs might need higher correction levels to get their attention, but start low regardless. Senior dogs or those with mobility issues may not be good candidates for fence systems that require quick physical responses. One common mistake is inconsistent boundaries. If you let your dog cross the boundary on leash to go for walks, they'll be confused about when the rules apply. Create a neutral zone gate area where you remove the collar before exiting, establishing a clear ritual that signals boundary doesn't apply right now. The contact points need regular checking. Matted fur, dirt buildup, or skin irritation can interfere with proper function. During my grooming sessions, I've caught several fence collar issues that owners missed. Let me address some questions that come up all the time. First, how long does it take to fully train a dog on an underground wireless fence? Most dogs achieve reliable boundary respect in 3 to 4 weeks with consistent daily training sessions of 15 to 20 minutes. The timeline varies based on age, temperament, drive level, and your consistency. High-energy breeds or dogs with strong prey drive may need an additional week or 2 of distraction-proofing before they're truly reliable around squirrels, cats, or other temptations. Can I train a cat on an underground wireless fence? While technically possible, training cats for underground wireless fences is far less successful than with dogs. Cats don't respond to correction-based training the same way. They're more likely to freeze rather than retreat when corrected, and their roaming behavior is different enough that containment success rates are low. Most veterinary behaviorists and the American Veterinary Medical Association recommend indoor housing or secure outdoor enclosures like catios instead of wireless fence systems for cats. What if my dog runs through the fence during training? If your dog bolts through the boundary despite the correction, you've likely progressed too quickly or the correction level is too low for their drive and pain tolerance. Return to on-leash boundary work for another week, increase the correction level by 1 setting, never jump multiple levels at once, and focus on higher value rewards for boundary respect before attempting off-leash time again.
Do I need to keep the collar on my dog all the time? No, the receiver collar should only be worn during outdoor time when the boundary is active, typically for a maximum of 8 to 12 hours per day. Remove it when your dog comes inside or at night to prevent pressure sores from the contact points. The collar needs to stay in the same position to maintain consistent contact, so check fit daily since dogs' coats and skin shift with grooming, weight changes, and seasonal coat growth. Training your pet for an underground wireless fence isn't about the technology, it's about building understanding through patient, consistent repetition. The flags teach the boundary, the warning tone gives a heads up, and the static correction becomes the consequence they learn to avoid. I've seen this work beautifully for dogs who previously had no reliable recall, giving them safe outdoor freedom while their owners have peace of mind. But I've also seen it fail spectacularly when people rush the process or skip the foundation work. Your dog doesn't naturally understand invisible boundaries. You're teaching an abstract concept using a combination of visual cues, sound associations, and mild consequences. That takes time.
The 4 dogs in my own yard each learned at different paces. My senior shepherd took twice as long as my terrier, and that's completely normal. Respect your individual dog's learning curve, stay consistent with your training sessions, and don't skip steps because you're eager for off-leash freedom. Done right, this system gives you both years of safe, supervised outdoor time together.
That wraps up this episode of Total Pet Parent Podcast. Thanks for spending your time with me today. New episodes come out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so you've always got something new to look forward to. If you got something useful out of this episode, would you mind leaving a 5-star rating and maybe a quick review? I know it sounds like a small thing, but it genuinely helps other dog owners find the show when they're searching for answers. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe or follow so you get a notification the second a new episode goes live. I'll catch you next time.